room for line.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on the Customs Amendment Bill and the Complementary Customs Tariff Amendment Bill. Mr Deputy Speaker, these two bills are being enacted to meet our obligations under the various chapters of the recent Japan-Australia Economic Agreement and enable changes to the Customs Act of 1901 to achieve it. Now, I commend both these bills to the House because this agreement has massive positive implications for our economy, our nation and for Japan as well. This agreement builds on the original agreement on commerce that was signed in 1957 by the Prime Minister of Japan at the time, Mr Nishi, and the Minister for Trade at the time, Black Jack McEwen. And our current Trade Minister, Mr Robb, has done an excellent job to achieve this as the second in the trifecta of international trade agreements. Now, what does this trade agreement mean for the line electorate? In the line electorate, Mr Deputy Speaker, we have many agricultural exporters and manufacturers and service providers, but it's the agricultural exporters that employ the most people that will be affected by this trade agreement. They employ many, many people who put food on the table for their families, they pay wages and they pay taxes to the government. And with more trade comes more job security, because 1 in 4 people in regional Australia have their jobs underpinned by foreign trade. A stronger economy at home will result as a result of increased agricultural exports. We export $66.5 billion in goods to Japan and $4.3 billion in services to Japan. Japan has $131 billion invested here, and we have $50 billion invested within Japan. But, Mr Deputy Speaker, tariffs on goods going into Japan means the landed price of our Australian goods is higher and makes our products less price competitive compared to our competition. Dropping and reducing tariffs makes our products much more competitive, and as a result, producers in the line electorate and broader Australia will benefit. But it's not just the producers at this end that will benefit, it's consumers as well. We all buy a lot of electrical goods and cars that come out of Japan. Admittedly, the tariffs are not great remaining on Japanese goods coming into the country, but 5% on the price of a modern car is a significant reduction, and we, as consumers, will all see the benefit of that. Now, the line electorate produces some of the best grass-fed and grass and grain-finished beef in Australia. Currently, the tariff is 38.5%, and eventually that will drop to 19.5%. That makes the $1.4 billion trade of Australian beef into Japan even better value to Japan, particularly relative to our competitors from North and South America. It will mean that there are better prices at the rails, at the cattle sales in Wauchope or Taree or Gloucester eventually, because there will be more competition for Australian beef by exporters. Better prices, better volumes for people that work at the Wingham abattoirs, the biggest employer in the Manning Valley. It'll mean better prices for Huckabee beef, that produce beef that's marbled in Wauchope and export into Asia and in particular into Japan. So these better export prices will eventually mean greater competition, more volume of trade and better prices at the farm gate. Even the secondary industries, apart from the actual beef, cowhides can now enter duty-free. So again, that's stronger demand for the product that comes out of Wingham beef, and it means a stronger local economy and a much more secure position for its 380 employees. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, between the Hastings and Manning Valley, Hannam Vale and Johns River areas and the Combine Plateau, there's almost 30% of New South Wales milk supply being produced. Most of this enters the daily fresh milk market, but extra supplies can go into the export market. As a result of this trade agreement, milk protein concentrates, casein and lactose, which currently amount to $53 million annually, can grow. And we have duty-free quotas for cheese, which can also grow. On the North Coast, on the Lion Electorate, we have a lot of wood produced, and wood products from North Coast timber, like at the mills at Herons Creek, or up at Telegraph Point, or down at Pampoola, into the fibreboard, particle board and structured and laminated timber, can all go into the Japanese market. So, as I mentioned earlier, with this free trade agreement, Australian produce is much more price competitive. That means there will be greater demand for Australian product and better product prices at the farm gate. Wine production in the Lion Electorate has been going into the Japanese market for many years. Just down the road from where I live, the very prestigious Cassegrains wines have been producing quality wine that's been served on the Shinkansen for up to a decade. They're part of the $42 million trade of wine exports into Japan, particularly into the premium end of the market and into restaurants as well. Now, the 15% tariff will drop immediately to zero if it's bulk wine that's being imported into Japan, and the bottled product will have the tariff drop slower. But this will allow them to be so much more competitive against their competitors from France and Chile. Also, we have macadamias and avocados on the Combine Plateau and at Red Hill at Telegraph Point in the north end of the Lion Electorate that feed both into the domestic market and the Australian export market. There's $16.5 million worth of macadamias, most of which comes from 400 producers on the north coast that feed into the export market into Japan, and that will grow as well. Admittedly, it's a small tariff, but every bit of price reduction means our product is much more competitive. In the seafood space, we don't have a lot produced in our area, but there is a significant crustacean and lobster market which feeds mainly into the local market. But if other bigger producers in the domestic market are now exporting to Japan, it means our product from the North Coast will be that more competitive. So whole new opportunities come into play with this free trade agreement. So I wholeheartedly support these two bills.
Thank the member for Lion. The question